The success of tomorrow's soy industry depends on the actions we take today. The future is here, and the time to move is now.
Market Journal, Television for Agricultural Business Decisions, is a presentation of the University of Nebraska-Lincoln's Institute of Agriculture and Natural Resources in partnership with the Nebraska Rural Radio Association. Promotional support provided by the Nebraska Farmer Magazine. Partial funding is provided by the Nebraska Soybean Board.
Hello everyone, I'm Alex Makovica and thanks for joining us today on Market Journal. Historic wildfires and ongoing drought have been at the heart of decision-making for cattle producers across Nebraska, especially in the Sandhills. That was on display at the Sandhills Ranch Expo in Bassett. Bryce Doeschot discussing the recovery status in the Sandhills with Nebraska Extension's Mitch Stevenson.
Mitch, good to see you. First, want to start out talking about some of the fire recovery after a absolutely historic wildfire season for the state of Nebraska. What are you seeing out in the fields?
Yeah, it's continuing, right? We're just seeing this fairly large fire near Crawford, continuing this drought conditions. It really most of the time we'd see that precipitation, green grass, humidity increasing, all those kind of things would help reduce that risk of fire. But in a lot of areas of the state, that hasn't been happening. So we're going to see recovery throughout the year, or fires throughout the year, and potentially needing to see recovery. We look back at years like 2012, which was wetter earlier than this year, but a lot of the fires happened later in that year because it dried out, and so the risk is still there. Still being vigilant in terms of safety and those types of things we really need to think about. But as far as like the recovery on things like the Morrill fire, the Cottonwood fire, some of the fires that happened there in March, we've seen a mixed response, I would say, and it's really driven by that precipitation and when and where that precipitation has happened. The Morrill fire was so huge that some areas have had some rain, other areas have stayed pretty dry. But by and large, we have seen with rainfall in the last couple weeks, we've really seen it start to green up. Some of those areas, the cool season grasses are way behind. Just didn't really get a lot of April, May precipitation, and that was really important for those cool season grasses. But the warm season grasses are starting. We're starting to see a little bit more stabilization of the sand movement out there, which is really, really important right now. And so continued recovery, it's going to be delayed, it's going to be set back. Hopefully we'll get some rains later this month. That's going to be really key in that warm season grass growth.
Well, to your point, the issues have been compounded this year because of a lack of moisture when we've needed it for some of those hills to green up in general for summer grazing. Just haven't seen that. So how about on the drought side of things? You can get more producers impacted by drought right now, right?
Yeah, I mean it's become a larger problem. The wildfires was such a difficult situation for so many. Now we've kind of started talking about drought because in normal, or whatever normal is, or in really wet years, recovery from fire can happen relatively quickly. But in these drought years, it affects the larger area too. And so we've seen a lot of people moving cattle around, making decisions, pulling those drought trigger dates, making sure that they're destocking so they're not overgrazing what they have. And so there's some places in the Sandhills that from April 1st to present that have received less than 25% of the average precipitation. And so it kind of goes back to the functionality of the Sandhills plant community. It's really a complex plant community with cool season grasses, warm season grasses, four shrubs, and so the timing of rainfall becomes very important. And so we just haven't seen this low amount of precipitation in quite a few years. I mean, if we're looking at analogous years, people are looking back to like 2002 as a year where it was less. But even then, our winter was so dry. Last fall was really dry in a lot of places, and so all those things compound within our plant communities to really affect the amount of biomass. So just south of here is the Barter Brothers Ranch, and we have 25 years of plant production data. So we can start modeling that. And our models would suggest that if we stop now with where we're at with the precipitation, that we would be somewhere in the neighborhood of like 50 to 60% of average plant production. If we get some rain later this month and into July, that could bump up, be closer to 60 to 70%, maybe a little bit more, but that's really dependent. June becomes our most critical month for precipitation. And so if you're low on precipitation in June, it can be really hard to recover later in the year in that regard.
Well, separate topic, but something you spent some considerable amount of time not only researching, but also extending that information to producers because they have questions, is the topic of virtual fence. How long have you and the university been focused on that and doing some trials out in the field at this point?
Yeah, we started in 2021, so we're at 5 years now, which it really doesn't seem that long that we've been working with the virtual fence products. But when they started coming on the market at a commercial scales, we really thought this could be something that people are going to have questions about, people are interested in. And there was a lot of research questions, questions in regards to like how well do they work, welfare of the animal, if there's some concerns about economics, all those things kind of play into it. Obviously, there's concerns about economics in everything that are on the ranch, and so we've been looking at that and researching that for the last 5 years. And now there's a lot more opportunity because we've had several more companies come to the United States in the last couple of years. And so the market's really expanded, I would say, in terms of options for producers to use some of these virtual fence collars. And in years like this, there may be some really big opportunities because, forage is already low. If there's opportunities to get cattle into places that maybe you didn't have fences or couldn't get fences up, but have pretty good carryover forages, virtual fence is an easy way that you can move cattle around and maybe get a better utilization where you're not overgrazing some areas and undergrazing areas, but you're hitting more of that forage and getting better harvest efficiency.
Thanks to Mitch for that update, and you can learn more about drought and fire recovery taking place in western Nebraska at beef.unl.edu. Nebraska agriculture depends on skilled workers, but finding them has become increasingly difficult. Welders are among the most in-demand trades, and the equipment that keeps farms and ranches running can't go without them. Market Journal's Steve White has more on a summer camp combining hands-on skills with industry knowledge.
No songs around the campfire at this summer camp. Instead, tours of local manufacturing facilities, sparking an interest in future careers.
Sparks fly. Forging the next generation of skilled workers Nebraska agriculture depends on, and who depend on a career off the farm to support their work on it.
That's really good. Thank you. You're consistent all the way across.
This is what summer camp looks like for Eli Schimmels, a week that could lead to a career.
I went here last year and it was just a really good experience. It helped me out a lot with my welding stuff.
Chaz Bader is another returning camper drawn to a week all about welding.
If you want to do something that's fun and relaxing and help build America's industry, weld.
Nebraska labor data shows welders and other skilled trades are among the hardest positions to fill. The Leadership Center in Aurora offers summer opportunities for FFA members, but this one is different, giving students several hours each day under the hood, then taking them inside industry with teacher Alex Stoker, who has also spent time as a welder.
6 hours of welding a day, and then we have some industry partners who came on, donated PPE, donated materials and things like that we're going, and then students get that hands-on tour.
Eli Schimmels will be a junior at Eustis Farnham. He helps on his family's ranch, but says welding has become more than a useful skill.
It calms me down. I put my earplugs in, I can't hear anything else, and I just get to watch that puddle melt away.
The welding booth is only part of the camp. Students also tour Nebraska manufacturers, building irrigation pivots, grain bins, and other equipment farmers depend on daily.
We have a really good training program.
One stop, Renke Manufacturing, where Chris Roth says center pivots built in rural Nebraska are shipped around the world.
You know, we're always looking for good qualified welders.
Rinke has invested tens of millions in robotics.
But we need the manual welders that are highly skilled to make the parts that maybe are not as high volume. So you still got to have the highly skilled, highly valued welders.
It's the exact connection organizers hope students would make, that welding is a pipeline to a good career in rural Nebraska.
Manufacturing is making a comeback in the United States, as we've been hearing about. And so skills and that you can apply for these kind of jobs will just be fantastic.
For many farm kids, welding isn't a replacement for agriculture, but a way to stay rooted in it. A skilled trade can provide steady income today and perhaps the opportunity to return to the family farm tomorrow.
I love working on a ranch, but it just does not make as much money as I would like to make.
Eli plans to take his talents on the road.
After I retire from pipeline welding, I want to either open a ranch somewhere or open a welding shop somewhere.
Camp instructor Alex Stoker says that's a reality many students face, and welding can help bridge the gap.
Sometimes going to the family farm is not the option, or maybe it can only support, the kid coming back part-time. So being able to have something to fall back on and do full-time and then be able to do farm part-time, it kind of works out that way.
Eli says those who put in the effort will be rewarded.
100%. I really want to go into welding as my future.
Many employers saying they would hire these kids now if they could. Reporting in Central City, I'm Steve White.
Thanks so much for that story, Steve. Never too early to get a head start on a promising trade. It's time now to turn our attention over to the markets, and joining us is livestock market analyst Kyle Bumsted. We see prices climbing, but we're now past the summer grilling season. Some things shifting, perhaps. Kyle, set us up here as we sit this week. We've got weaker cash trade. What's going on in the markets?
Yeah, it's been a rough week as far as this cattle complex. Rough 2 weeks, really. Last week we started with cash dropping $5 to $7, and this week we've dropped another $5 to $7. And I think if really dig into it, we could be trading cash under a year ago's prices at this point in time. I'd have to go back and do some real digging on that one, but that's typically not a good sign. Not a good sign either. We've seen this board drop, $30 almost $30 as far as the feeders, and we've dropped almost $20 in the fats here. That's not good either. We're sitting around this 230 mark in the August live cattle. We just couldn't break that 250 mark here about 3 weeks ago. And now we're stuck down here at 230, and the cash is coming down in droves. And it wouldn't surprise me if next week it's a little bit softer as well, too, just based off the cutout. The cutouts have been getting hit really, really hard. And some are saying 365 might stop the bleeding, but the way it's sounding here, it's probably going to go blow right down through 365, maybe on down to the 340s as far as the choice box goes, just for the simple fact that retailers aren't moving it. I know everybody says demand is good, but talk to some retailers, and there's some packers out there that aren't even offering. I mean, they're not getting any offers, or not even getting any bids out there as far as boxes. So that's definitely a concern here at this point in time. And we are in the dog days of summer as well, too. So that has an effect as well, but it gets hot in the summertime, and it's just what it is.
Well, let's talk about that consumer demand. Ground beef still has good demand, but have you seen other cuts trail off? What does that look like right now?
Yeah, middle meats have trailed off. The higher end cuts as far as the steak, steaks, ribeyes, sirloins, things like that, they've slowed down a little bit, but that's also partially seasonal as well too. But when you look at the price of them, it's not surprising. And then you look at the price of what gas and fuel is doing too, it's definitely hitting. I know a lot of folks are talking about the CPI number coming in and things like that or whatever, and it shouldn't be showing a lot of inflation, but it really is. There is really real inflation out there when it comes to consumer in the grocery store.
That is on the consumer side of things. Let's talk about what is seasonal right now for the producer side of things, how cattle are moving, and what that looks like right now. Ongoing drought still taking place. We're hearing heifer retention maybe in some areas, but not so much. What does that picture look like?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. There is heifer retention in some areas. We do need some rain out here in central Nebraska. Again, we did get some rains earlier on, and it kind of helped us through. But we're needing some rain again here as far as this grass goes. And even a lot of places out in the plains, they've got rain here a month, 6 weeks ago. They were getting good rains, but now it's starting to get hot and dry again out there. And so, yeah, it was enough to kind of get them band-aided along. But we're going to need some more. And as far as for long-term heifer retention, I think what it might come down to is maybe if this fall people just don't think they're going to get what they want of their calves. They might see some heifer retention and say, well, I'm going to keep these heifers and, something like that if they've got the feed. Now, we still got the feed here in a lot of places in Nebraska, but it doesn't take long for cows to walk through that feed. So that's definitely a concern as well, too. If we stay hot and dry longer, we're probably going to walk through those feed reserves a little bit faster.
And feed prices playing a factor right now as well. And we see grains tick up, and that's got to play a role.
Right. It does play a role, definitely, but it's not been the correlation that people think, as corn goes up, feeders go down, and corn goes down, feeders go up. That's not the long-term correlation when you lay the charts over side by side. They work more in tandem than they do apart from each other, but that's a story for another day. But when you look at this thing, there's something that definitely needs to be watched out there as far as end users, and even for those that are looking for, some speculative portions out there in the grain. Those spreads out there, that March, May, July, those corn spreads are kind of firm out there. So it tells me that the trade is maybe thinking longer term. There might be something to this corn deal. And maybe South America, there might be some South American issues. But we've also seen, too, once we get South America, once they get planted, we need to watch those spreads. So if those spreads start widening out, then it's not near as bullish case. But right now, they're setting up to be somewhat of a bullish case out there, too, next July as far as this corn market's concerned.
Okay, Kyle, get that crystal ball out the next couple of weeks, maybe a shorter term forecast. What do you see in the weeks ahead when it comes to the beef market?
Very good question. And I just remember when I was a kid about county fair weeks or during county fair season, I typically put in the low for cash cattle because the kids had worked hard all spring and all winter and all spring feeding them calves and taking them and breaking them and everything like that and walking them through. And they usually set the low. Those kids usually set the low as far as the cash market goes. But I think we still got some more headwinds as far as this cash market goes. And we've probably still got some more headwinds as far as the board goes. Now, that's not to say the board can't rally just due to lack of sellers out there. I did look at some of these, the commitments traders and things like that. They are almost on the verge of net short in some of these contracts here as far as live and feeder cattle. So they don't stay short very long. I'm not saying they're going to go back long right away or get into buy position. There could just be a little bit of short covering or something like that. And that could set up to maybe some air pockets above the market here, given the fact that we sold off extremely hard, extremely fast. We could hit some air pockets above us as far as a market book, and this thing could rally a couple bucks on nothing or a few dollars. I'm looking for these feeders maybe to rally $5 to $7, and that would be about it for the time being. And then on the live cattle, maybe just lack of sellers out there drive this thing up, maybe $3, $4, but they're still going to be watching that cash market pretty hard.
Okay, Kyle, we've got about 20 seconds left. Your words of wisdom for cattle producers out there thinking about their next marketing move.
That's a good question. I wish I had a really good answer for you, but right now I don't. And options are not cheap, and some of the LRPs are not cheap either. And so maybe if you need to do something all out fail safe, it might be just go straight to the futures and run yourself a stop. That might be the most economical way to do things.
Again, a big thanks to Kyle for joining us this week. As a reminder, if you have a question you'd like to ask any of our future analysts, send us an email or get in touch on social media. We'll be sure to pass those questions along. Kerry Keys and his wife Anita, of nearly 40 years, ranch together in southeast Cherry County near Ellesmere. They've seen it all on the ranch over their married lives, and they reflect on what it was like to grow up on the farm and ranch 50 years ago compared to ranching today. They look forward to what the future of ag in Nebraska might look like in an article of the July issue of the Nebraska Farmer. Changing gears now, it's time for a quick check on the weather with Nebraska Extension's Eric Hunt. We have seen some hot summer heat over the last week, certainly due for that. But what about precipitation to cool us down a bit?
Well, thanks, Alex. It'll certainly be relatively hot here to start the week with highs in the 90s, lower 100s here across most of the state. But the good news is there's going to be some chances for precipitation in the back half of the week. Starting off on Monday, though, this ridge, which has been up here across the northern plains, is starting to shift down toward the south. And by Monday, we are expecting to be centered over Colorado. Still pretty hot, though, statewide, with highs mostly in the 90s, possibly flirting with or exceeding 100 degrees across portions of central and eastern Nebraska, with winds blowing out of the south and southwest. Good news, though, is we are going to see a cold front slide through the state later Monday and early Tuesday. That will bring some chances for showers and thunderstorms, particularly along the south of Platte River. And I think our temperatures on Tuesday should back off quite a bit from Monday. Cooler still by Wednesday with highs probably mostly in the lower to mid 80s here across most of the state. Also much cooler here across portions of the central and eastern Corn Belt as well. So a lot of areas that needed a little break from the heat are going to pick it up. Towards the precipitation, with that ridge sliding down toward the south, we are going to see the ring of fire with ridge riding thunderstorms probably shift down toward the south. I don't necessarily anticipate any precipitation falling in the state Tuesday, maybe into Wednesday. By the way, Wednesday night and Thursday, I think we will see a round of thunderstorms probably roll through at least portions of the state. Better chances still coming in Thursday and Friday. Right now, the WPC does not show a lot of rain falling out of the sky here through midday on Thursday. But certainly, I think as we get toward the end of the week, we're going to see better chances for additional moisture. Right now, the European model does have at least a reasonably good chance of an inch of rain falling in the back half of next week across most of the state. But again, a lot of this will be in the form of thunderstorms. Does not necessarily mean everybody's going to get a uniform amount of rain. Some places could do pretty well. Some places, unfortunately, will probably be left a little more high and dry. And there certainly are places in the state, including portions of eastern and central Nebraska, really could use a really good rain by this time next week. 8 to 14, the outlook for temperature shows above average being favored for most of the state, maybe the exception being the north. I do think our temperatures should be probably reasonably average to maybe slightly below average during the back half of next week. I think as we get toward the latter part of July, we will see those temperatures creep back up a little bit, possibly even really creep back up. We may see some very warm temperatures as we get toward July 29th, 30th time frame. Right now, though, the CPC does show the worst of the heat being to our south later this next week, early the week after next. Probably going to be down here in Texas and Oklahoma, as opposed to where it's been lately, which has been mostly to our north and northeast. 8 to 14 outlook for precipitation shows active monsoon here across the southwest. That should actually impact some of western Nebraska. I do think there's going to be better chances for some much needed relief here across portions of the panhandle. Not really showing much signal here across most of the Corn Belt, but I do think we're going to have some chances for some decent precipitation amounts for at least some of us here coming into the latter part of July. But we've had obviously nothing out that's fall out of the sky here so far this week across Nebraska, pretty much this entire region. And really, we are starting to see some water stress really creep back in here across portions of eastern Nebraska. Getting to western Iowa, looking at the root zone, we are short of 30% of available water according to this model for this region. Drought monitor, we have seen some improvement of late here across portions of western Nebraska, but we are starting to see some degradation here across portions of east central and southeastern Nebraska, back into abnormal dryness or moderate drought depending on your location. Looking at where we have it for soybean, again, most of the country where we have drought is not in our prime corn soybean area. Only 19% of the area with major soybean crop is in drought right now. Rangelands have gotten somewhat better according to VegDry across portions of western Nebraska. Still very, very stressed, though, across a lot of the western United States. Soil temperatures across the state are mostly in the 70s to lower 80s right now. And there is a temperature and precipitation roundup for the week ending July 11th, 2026. Back to you, Alex.
Thanks so much, Eric. Finally, today, soil is a living and life-giving substance. As world population and food production demands rise, keeping soil healthy and productive is of utmost importance. That's why this week, Nebraska NRCS employees joined Nebraska researchers for a one-of-a-kind soil training experience.
We've partnered with UNL Extension to host our Soil Health and Sustainability for Field Staff course. The course is designed to train NRCS conservation planners on the basics of soil health, everything from the principles of soil health, talking about management, talking about soil biology, and how all of these things come together as a system to benefit soil health.
We host these events to connect with producers, connect with agronomists, connect with field staff, so we could share like scientific-based information or experience also adopting like practices at bigger scale. So you don't not only like, run experiments like in a small plots, but also at field scale, so people can like, refer to that we are using like, farm equipment in, testing different technologies. So they can get to know from us that we are experimenting new technology, new practices, so they can start like thinking about making the change in their land, because, if it works here, they can start like making the decision of like, okay, can I reduce my nitrogen fertilizers? Can I reduce the input? Based on what we are finding, there are like several ways that we could be like more efficient in the use of fertilizer or other inputs. So we are here to test those ideas, to like, try out new technology. So we have those field days to demonstrate, the adoption of different practices, technologies, and so on.
I hadn't heard of the prairie strips that can be put into cropland systems and also used to integrate livestock. as kind of a grazing land in the cropland and to help supplement the stocks in the winter. It really helps just to give us the knowledge and background to explain to the producer efficiently and effectively and kind of connect with them on different levels and kind of experience what they're experiencing. And it's really good to get the background information on the research that's being done and just to get new tools on how to help producers and get more conservation on the land, because that's our end goal.
Yeah, it's been a great project we started. It's an exciting day to be out here with NRCS. And so my lab, I run the Applied Wildlife Ecology and Spatial Movement Lab, or we like to call it the Awesome Lab. And we're out here today because what we do is we focus on conservation and working lands. And so I actually gave a presentation inside and then outside at our prairie strips that we've established here at the University of Nebraska Research and Extension Center. So prairie strips, CP43, if folks hear about that, it started over in Iowa, and basically what it is basically putting in prairie strips, or essentially perennial grasses and forbs that are planted. It could be in a strip or it could be in like a pivot corner. Basically where an individual has identified a resource concern. So what typically happens is landowners would go into an FSA office, Farm Service Agency office, they would meet with them, then they would go work with NRCS to basically establish criteria for what putting those prairie strips in their property, what that would look like, where they could put it, and that would allow them to address resource concerns from soil erosion, water quality, quantity issues, declining wildlife populations. And so that's really the point of prairie strips, is to help just as another tool in the proverbial toolbox for landowners, for conservation practitioners, so they can be able to put conservation back in our working land system.
Always great to see that kind of collaboration. You can learn more about the work being done on soil health on the Market Journal homepage. That's going to do it for this week's show. If you missed a story, be sure to follow Market Journal on YouTube and social media to join in on the conversation. Bryce Doeschot will be back next week. Until then, we hope to see you right here. I'm Alex Makovica.
Join Market Journal online at marketjournal.unl.edu. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Promotional support is provided by the Nebraska Farmer Magazine. Market Journal is produced by the University of Nebraska-Lincoln's Institute of Agriculture and Natural Resources.